A doorway was opened for me many years ago when I was afraid to look in the corner of my eye at that black hole. A doorway was opened with a beautiful piece, I know many of you know it, called Desiderata by Max Ehrman. And in that piece, it says, "You are a child of the universe. No less than the trees and the stars, and you have a right to be here. You have a right to your life. You belong in your life. You don't even just belong in your life. You belong wherever you are. You belong in this community. You belong in your family. You belong to the universe. You belong because you are." So once a long time ago, I realized that I had like that whirlpool, that black, dark whirlpool right back here in the corner of my eye all of the time. And I knew beyond the shadow of a doubt that if I got too close to the edge, I would fall in and never come back, never come out. That's what my God-sized hole felt like. It felt like a vortex that was going to suck me in, and I would disappear for good. I spent a lot of years trying to fill that black hole with all kinds of stuff, right? All kinds of stuff. And nothing I tried to fill it with was big enough. Didn't matter how much stuff I poured into that hole. Nothing was big enough because nothing was God-sized. Now, I don't know what your God-sized hole looks like or feels like. I hope to God it's not like that. But we all have one, and it is that part of us that longs and yearns for an experience of the presence, that wants to have a hand to hold, that wants to have guidance, that wants to know that no matter what, we're loved, that we can make as many mistakes as there are to make, that we can screw up as much as any human being can imagine screwing up, and that we're still loved, and that we belong, and that our life matters. Those are the kinds of prayers that take us to our knees. And it is the opening, it is the beginning of the possibility of courting the divine presence. And so that's what I want to talk about this morning, to court the divine presence. And the ways in which we do that, and how we invite that, and whether or not we allow it. There's a wonderful theologian named Martin Buber, and he talks about the three faces of God. The three faces of God. And these three faces are the I, the it, and thou. Now, when we first hit our knees and we begin to court the presence and we find our way into a spiritual community like this, and we become members, whether we stand up here officially, which we love that you do, or whether we just find a home here, we begin to find that we're lovable, Because there are people who love us, whether we feel it or not, whether we know it or not. That's what it means to be in spiritual community. And slowly but surely, we begin to hear a message that there is a God presence within us. That the I that I am, the truth of my being, is actually the light of love itself. It is the presence as us. And we start looking in the mirror a little differently. And maybe we start being willing to dream a little bigger. Or imagine the possibility that we do in fact matter or count. And we court that presence within. And then we learn, and we call this the experience of the immanent presence. And we often call it our higher self, our deeper self, our inner wisdom. And we seek to know it and experience it and to find our strength and our purpose and our chutzpah in that I that I am, and that willingness to claim a life and to claim our light and to claim our love and to claim the truth of our being. And the more we do that, the more we find something in there that is beyond our human foibles and our false ideas about ourselves. And we become encouraged. And so the next thing that we do is we begin to practice, or we begin to understand this idea that the divine is also the universal principle, the universal law. And because the presence is right here, we actually get to use that law. We actually get to participate in life. We get to co-create our lives with this newfound passion for ourselves and our own lives. We get to actually learn about and use this universal law that is the creative power that is happening all the time. And we move from the God that is the I, and we court the God that is it. And we work with our language. Perhaps we release the word God. Perhaps we begin to practice with words like the universe, the force, subjective mind, the mind, all of these things to help us begin to court the idea that there is this power that is something that we are engaged with, that we can use in our own lives. When I began courting the I and the it, what I discovered was myself. And this practice of courting the presence gave me back to myself, and I discovered that I mattered and that I belonged.
I'm so glad you joined us today. That makes you a part of CSLDallas, and we love that our community continues to grow. And we also love to give great spiritual content. And a way that you can participate in our community is financially give to it. It's easy to do so. Go to CSLDallas.org and hit the give button. Or you can set up a text giving mechanism at 972-954-4404, a safe and secure way to send us money whenever you watch a great message like this. So thanks for giving, and buckle up, because here comes the spiritual content.
But I noticed, and maybe some of you have noticed this too, maybe this has been a part of your journey, that right about here we have what is one of the 7 significant spiritual initiations on the spiritual path. Meister Eckhart talked about it this way. He said, I pray to God to rid me of God, that I may find God. I pray to God to rid me of an old childlike idea of a God out there, that I may find God someplace else. And first we find it in here. And then we grab a hold of this law, and God becomes not just I, but it. And for some of us who grew up with the God that loved us, the one that counted the hairs on our head and that walked with us in a storm and all of those things, that was the God that we had to let go of, because we were recognizing that there wasn't something out there who was doing it for us or to us, but that it was coming from within. And this initiation can feel cold, distanced, and challenging. Because if there's nobody out there to love me, then how do I know I'm loved? And if I only ever have to rely on myself and use the law, that can be a little lonely. But we persist. And we begin to discover the love that comes to us from community, from this practice of being in spiritual community. And we experience a larger love, a deeper love, a richer love that's beyond just the love that we discover within ourselves. And slowly but surely, we get to the other side of this initiation. And on the other side is the transcendent mystery, the divine presence, whose face is thou. And this is that larger presence that isn't just here, but is also there. We understand that the highest God and the innermost God is one God, and that we have to abandon our old idea of the outer God to discover the I and the it. But we can't stop there. In courting the divine presence, we must move all the way through that initiation to reclaim the face of God that is thou. This face of God is that face that we still long for, that we yearn for, that isn't just about being our own strong self, but it is a deep and profound recognition that we belong and that we're connected to something larger than us. And that the love that we are yearning for is present. And so we come to courting the presence and admitting that we yearn for that we long for that. And when we think about courting, think about that. I don't know that we do much courting these days. I'm not sure we really get into courting as much. But if you think about, in the past, those lovely stories of courtship, and maybe we've had the experience of longing and yearning for the one that we have found and seen. And what do we do when we have found that one? We yearn to be in their presence, don't we? We long for them to be there. And we recognize that in that moment, there is so much of our own love that we want to pour and shower onto our beloved. We might even go so far as to say that we adore the one we love. Now, what if that is in our hearts for the people in our lives? We should trust that which seeks to and yearns for and longs to adore this larger life, this transcendent mystery, this moment of ecstatic oneness that we experience when we transcend our limitation, our smallness, and we move and connect. In that moment of adoration, we are brought to our knees and we are filled. And do we approach our meditation cushion and our spiritual mind treatment and our spiritual practice with that kind of fervor? Or do we do it because we're supposed to? Somebody said we should. It's my practice and discipline. To allow that yearning to be revealed, to allow that longing, is the beginning of the opening of the door to experiencing, to courting, to drawing in our own experience of that, of thou. So in our beautiful book that Michael so lovingly talked about, I want to just read from The Bushman Way of Tracking God. Don't be embarrassed to feel what you long to experience with your mama and papa. Feel it for your grandparents as well. Feel it in a grand way. Then go all the way. Get all the way down so you can feel it pulling all the way from above. God wants you to know something. God wants you to know the divine through a special kind of feeling. Feeling God's love with all your heart, mind, body, and soul. God wants you to passionately realize that the Holy of Holies has already got a hold of you. I know you are capable of feeling all this. The problem is that you have forgotten who you are and what you are meant to be. Now is the time for you to find yourself, to uncover your true self that is only at home inside the heart of God. There, all the spiritual rivers flow into the infinite ocean of love. This is where the rain wants to pour over anyone unashamed to show God the clouds in their blue sky. God's love. I love this. Let me just put this up here. God's love, a mystery that can never be understood, but it can be fully and wholly felt. Fully and wholly felt. See, I have the unfortunate affliction. I have the unfortunate affliction of practicing what's called Jnana Yoga. Jnana Yoga is the path of the intellect. It is lovingly called the you can't get there from here path. And many of us in the science of mind can be afflicted with this. And we do actually need to cultivate our intellect, and we must cultivate our understanding. But that understanding can only take us so far. And it is in courting the presence that we make the leap into the experience, the ecstatic experience of oneness. Now, I take these things very seriously, as you know. Somebody tells me to do something, I'm like, okay, I got to go do that. And so in every spiritual tradition that I've ever read, they tell you, pray without ceasing. You want to experience the divine, you want to court the presence, pray without ceasing. I'm like, oh, okay, I don't really know what that means. Pray without ceasing. Okay, well, I was raised Catholic. So, I made up all kinds of things when I was a kid so I could go to confession so that they could then, give me Hail Marys and Our Fathers and read, do the rosary and stuff like that. And I liked it. I liked the quiet of the church after going to confession and sitting there and doing the beads. And I still love the malas and, saying the prayers. And I thought, well, I don't really know how to walk around my life saying the Our Father and the Hail Mary all the time. How will I answer the phone? I'm like, I don't really get that. Like, really, should I just go to the mountaintop and just sit and pray? That just seemed weird. Pray without ceasing. What in the world does that mean? Well, I tried praying prayers, and then I tried Ernest Holmes' prayers and affirmations and stuff like that, and they were, not really. Doesn't feel like courting the presence to me. It feels like manifesting, right? Manifesting is good. Manifesting is okay. Perfect. Lovely, but it's not where I'm going. Pray without ceasing. Well, what does prayer mean? Prayer means Emerson says it is the soliloquy of a jubilant and beholding soul. To be jubilant and to behold the one, right? That's what prayer is, the ultimate in courting the presence. I thought, oh, okay, so let's see. I behold God. Oh, behold God, 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 behold God, behold God, behold God, behold God, 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 God. Wow. God. Do you know that if you behold God, everything looks like God after a while? The soliloquy of a jubilant and beholding soul. To see God in every moment, wherever we look, is the next opening to courting the presence. Because what is thou but the face of God as it is reflecting itself back to us, both in the manifest and in the unmanifest world? And so, to behold God every time, everywhere we look, wherever we see, wherever we go. And you know, the promise is every single spiritual tradition, every spiritual practice has the same promise. The promise is that if we will turn to the divine presence, if we will seek to behold it, if we will praise its presence, it is turning to us in that moment. Seek and ye shall find. Ask and ye shall be answered. Knock and the door will open is the promise. The promise is that when we seek to experience beyond just the immanent I, which is so important, and the universal law, to experience our sense of oneness and connection with the whole, that if we will behold it in life, everywhere, every place, as much as possible, that face of God will be revealed to us. And we will discover that there is no place where we can go where Spirit isn't present. There is no place where the divine presence isn't present. There's no experience in which we aren't lifted and cradled and loved through whatever it is that we have to walk through, that we face in that moment. Because we have beheld God, we have courted this opening, this knowing. We have allowed ourselves to yearn and to long for the experience, this larger connection and oneness. And the promise is fulfilled. A doorway was opened for me many years ago when I was afraid to look in the corner of my eye at that black hole. A doorway was opened with a beautiful piece, I know many of you know it, called Desiderata by Max Ehrman. And in that piece, it says, "You are a child of the universe, no less than the trees and the stars, and you have a right to be here. You have a right to your life. You belong in your life. You don't even just belong in your life. You belong wherever you are. You belong in this community. You belong in your family. You belong to the universe. You belong because you are." And do you see, when we know this belonging, see, when we behold God and we know this belonging, it's as if those arms have wrapped themselves around us. And we are then embraced by this thou without the need for it being being in the sky, some old idea. Do you see, we reclaim it in an entirely new way. You are a child of the universe, not because the universe is your parent, but because you share the DNA of the universe. You are an offspring of the One. That universal presence that has incarnated as the immanent you is the same universal presence, and you and I, we share in that DNA. And so we are present. Our presence is as necessary and needed and as a part of the whole and the oneness as every other expression. Well, I have to admit that I don't always know that. I don't always feel that, right? We don't always remember that. We get busy, we get sidetracked, we got to accomplish stuff. By God, we're going to manifest our lives. We're going to manifest our joy. We're going to manifest our wholeness, right? All of that. And then there's social media to keep up. We got to look at Facebook, and we got to watch the latest show, and don't forget to be on the, and get So we have to continue to court the divine. We have to track God. And how do we track God? How do we court the divine? Well, again, think about courtship. You don't run over to the person that you want to, you're adoring, and wrap your arms around them and say, I claim you. So they're like, what? No, what do? You love. You send flowers. And you sit. And you're still, and you wait. And you do what seems appropriate, and then you wait. It's like a cat. Actually, it's actually like Karen's beautiful cat, Bodhi. So when Karen and I, after she became a minister here, and Karen and I got together, she explained to me that her cat was a one-woman cat. And I went, okay, yeah, there you go. I had a cat at the time, and they sort of got along. It was all right, and I didn't believe her, but Bodhi was clearly a one-person cat. He didn't really have much to do with me, and that was okay. It was okay with me. I knew that if I sat still long enough, something would happen. So I helped with feeding, not so much on the litter box, but I did help with the feeding. And Karen would go out of town, and I'd feed, and I'd pet while he was feeding. That was about the best we could do. Then I had to give him medicine. I had to pick him up and give him medicine. He was not so clear about that. Like, who are you and what are you doing? All I did was love him. I wasn't mad that he was a one-person cat. I didn't blame him for being a one-person cat. I didn't think, what is the matter with you that you don't love me? Nor did I think, what is the matter with me that you don't love me? Right? I let him be. I let him be precisely and exactly who he was, and I courted him. And how did I court him? By invitation. Occasionally he would sit on the couch next to me and I'd pet him. I took a picture the very first time he sat in my lap when Karen was out. I took a picture. Oh my God, OMG. Sent it to her. Don't worry, your cat's fine. Yesterday, so that took, I don't know, a year, maybe a year and a half. Then we started making friends, and he's like, you're not so bad. You're not so bad. And occasionally she would dump him on my lap, and he'd stay there. A couple days ago, for the first time ever, we were sitting side by side. Bodie came to my lap first. And then went to Karen's. Do you see? Do you see? There was a fabulous meme on Facebook about a woman who, I don't know how many of you saw it, a stray dog, she fed it for 3 years until it let her pet, right? Courting the presence. It's not with whips and chains and beating our breasts and going, oh my God, and I don't, and it's not any of those things. It's invitation, stillness, quiet. Sitting on our cushion with the fervor of the courtship. And to remember the promise that as we turn to Spirit, Spirit turns to us. The Bushmen remind us that this stillness, this quiet, it's a turn of phrase to say when we turn to God, God turns to us, right? As if God were somehow separate or somewhere else or had its back to us. It's all nonsense, right? But we need metaphorical language to get a hold of what we're talking about and to get a hold of this thou. And the way that they talk about this, I think, is really astonishing. The Kalahari spirituality suggests that it is distracting and inaccurate to depict yourself as a person who should try to spiritually evolve. Okay, I've been saying that for quite a while. You should not try to spiritually evolve. If you are in tune, life simply plays beautiful music on you. It has nothing to do with your instrument being more developed. It is all about tuning. Why? Because the presence is already here. You're as spiritual as you're ever going to be. The divine presence is as present as it's ever going to be. We just haven't tuned the station. We're still getting a little static, right? The whole of life is already tuned, and the gods are never out of tune. What they await is your being tuned with them, so their wisdom and expression can be sympathetically transmitted through you. Like strings on a lute. Get in tune and life will play you beautifully and perfectly. The key to embracing vital living is to know how to tune your life and to stay tuned. Right? That's what all of our spiritual practices are about. Every last one of them is about tuning our lives and getting in tune so the divine presence that we are courting we become aware of. Everything is in service to being in tune. So I want to close with some thoughts from Ernest Holmes, this thing called you. Scott, if you would come up here, we're going to just let this be our closing prayer, our closing affirmation. You can close your eyes if you'd like and just listen. It is wonderful to know that your good is at hand. Your night wanes. Your dawn is breaking. There is a living spirit at the center of your being. The original author of all life is in and around you. Not a God who was, but a God who is. Life is wherever you are. It revolves around you even as it flows through you. Keep the doorway of your mind open. Feeling, thinking, communing with this life, knowing that it fills you with light and with power. You need not mold your life after another. Trust yourself. Believe in your direct relationship with life, and you will not be disappointed. Do not wait. Today is the time to start. Right where you are is the place to begin. It is not necessary to spend your entire time in prayer and meditation. Rather, seek to make your work a prayer, your believing an act, your living an art. It is then that the object of your faith will be made visible to you. It is then that you shall kiss the lips of the divine. You are a part of the one. You live and move and have your being in pure spirit. Since the only life you can have is the life of spirit, you are surrounded by this dynamic force. You are immersed in it and saturated with the vital essence of life. Its presence permeates everything. So feel the divine presence. And as you feel the divine presence more and more, you will hear a song of joy singing at the center of your being. You have only to be still and listen, for the song is always there. And so it is.